My dear brothers and sisters, I wish to welcome you to the 33rd Sunday in Ordinary Time. Today we are reading one of my favorite parables, the parable of the talents. Now, when you look at this parable of the talents, I love this parable so much because it reveals personally to me so many truths about God. The first one is that this parable reminds me that God is generous and the generosity of God is boundless. Number two, it reminds me of the freedom that God has given to me to become whoever I want to be. Remember, in this parable, Jesus tells us that this man who shared the talents to his servants, after sharing the talents, went on a journey. God gives us ample opportunity, free hand, to become whoever we want to be. So nobody has the right to blame God if the person fails, because God has given us the freedom to become whoever we want to be. Again, the going away also of this master reminds us of the patience of God. And in this patience of God, put together with the freedom that God has given to us, we understand that God does not police us. Rather, He allows us to actualize ourselves. Again, in this story, Jesus makes us to understand that we don't have the same ability. We don't have the same ability. And each of us will receive according to our own ability. There are those who receive 5. There are those who receive 2. There are those who receive 1. Look at your fingers. They are not equal. But one thing is very sure. One thing that gives us equal pedestal is that there's no human being that God created without a gift. There's no one that God created empty. Each and every one of us, we have received something unique. What I received may not be what you have received. But the fact is that there's no one that God created empty. Now, coming to what I call OTP, the origin of our talent. God is the origin of our talents. But why did God give these talents? God gave us these talents that we may glorify Him through the use of these talents. Number 2, God gave us these talents that we may find our well-being and discover happiness, joy using these talents, which means for our own salvation. The talents that you have, the gift that you have, the skills you have were given to you for your own salvation. Number 3, God gave these talents and gifts to us for the good of other people, which means that our giftedness, our skills, our talents are also for the common good. It's not just for us. And that is why at the end of this passage, we see that God will reward those who have put into use their talents, and He will punish those who refuse to use their talents. In the evening of our lives, each of us will give account of how we have used our talents, and no one will give any kind of excuse. But God is going to reward those who have put their talents into use, and those who did not put their talents into use, He will punish them. Now, another beautiful thing about this passage on this origin is to remind us, dear friends in Christ, is that these talents that we have received, if we put them to use, will be multiplied. But if we refuse to use them, it will be taken away from us, because gradually we will lose it. But remember this, every one of us is gifted. Now on the talent, we have the 3 T's. I'm sure you remember this: the time, the talent, and the treasure. Even if you say you have no talent, there are many ways you can discover your talent. Go through your life and look back in your childhood days and discover those things you used to find interest in. Even at this moment, what are those things that interest you? What are those things you can do in your leisure? What are those things you can do spontaneously without any, much effort? Those are your talents. What are those things that people, tell you that, oh, they like this about you? That's your talent. So look back and see. Try to evaluate yourself and get into prayer, into meditation, contemplation, introspection. You will discover your own talent. Because there's no one, as I say, that God created without talent. We are all bundles of talents, but we must put them to use. Now, I said OTP. Now, the P here is that when we look at this gospel passage, we see clearly that this man prevented himself from receiving blessings from God. He was filled with so many issues. Now, in this third man who received 1 talent and went and buried his talent and came to the master and said, I know you're a hard man. He said so many things. What he said usually, makes me to laugh. But in the character of this man, in the personality of this man, we can see ourselves. Okay? Now, look at the things that can prevent you from recognizing, realizing, and actualizing your talents. The first one is fear. Fear is one of the greatest obstacles to success in life, and also one of the greatest obstacles to one actualizing himself or herself in this life. The second thing is about faithlessness. For us to actualize our talents, we have to learn to trust in God, because He is the giver of these talents. And for us to become fruitful and blossom in our talents, we need to be connected to Him. And that's why I always say that faith is a relationship. The third one is presumption. This man presumed that he will fail even if he tried. There are people who have this kind of negative orientation that everything is about failure, even without trying. They say that, we hear this, that there's no harm in trial. But there are people who will never try because they always believe that they will fail. Even without trying, they believe that they will fail. So presumption is a sin also. So there are many of us who presume, and because of our presumption, we don't try. The fourth one is people who live in the shadows of the society. There are those who will never use their talents because of what people will say about them. They are afraid of failure. Let me tell you, failure is on the pathway. It's on the way to success. If you don't fail, you don't succeed. It is by failing actually that you succeed. Look at little children. Before a child starts to walk, what happens? The child will always fall many times before eventually he or she learns how to walk. So if you don't fail, you don't rise. It is by failing that we rise. It is by failing that we become successful. The fifth thing that can affect our being successful in the use of our talents is laziness. You see, the other two in this parable, they were diligent. And the opposite of diligence is laziness. So, any lazy person is the enemy of God, because God has created us that we may become His instruments in making the world a better place. So if you just go inside your room and lie down and keep on complaining, you are not a friend of God. The friends of God are those who keep on walking and keep on allowing themselves to become instruments in the recreation of the world every day. Because every good thing you do, you are contributing in the recreation of the world. The sixth point that can stop you from realizing your talent is ignorance. Ignorance is a very dangerous thing, and it has destroyed many destinies and talents. The seventh point can be close-mindedness. Those who are close-minded, they will never, welcome the opinions and suggestions of other people, and by that, they can never blossom in their talent. Sometimes you need another person to help you to realize your talents through practice and other ways. So if you are close-minded, it will be difficult for you to grow. The eighth thing is self-pity. Self-pity can also destroy your talents. So we have to be careful about this. Stop looking down on yourself. Try to realize, try to look inside yourself and discover your own talents, because you are gifted. So dear brothers and sisters, there are so many ways we can realize our talents. But the first, and I believe is the first, is to get united to God through prayers and constant communication. Through that, we'll be able to realize our talents. And remember, in the evening of our lives, we will all stand before God to say and to give account how we have used our talents. I will tell God about you.